Hi, good morning, everybody. We're coming to you today from the cabin. This is our little tiny cabin in the woods in New York. We come up here a lot of weekends in the summer and the fall to do things like hiking and kayaking and just sort of relaxing. So you can see here's our kayak, and there's Spencer's little yellow one. And look who I've got here. Here she is. Even Millie comes up to the cabin. Come on, Pickle, come say hi. Now, Millie is a little overwhelmed when we come outside at the cabin. Don't think she likes it all that much. I think there's a lot of strange smells out here and a lot of big creatures, some of whom like to eat rats. So she usually does not really come out, and that's okay. All right, lady? We'll close you up and we'll get started today. Oh, you want to show them what we're doing? Sure, we can do that. Thank you for your guidance. Okay, so I put her down. She tried to run away. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to tell you what you're going to need today. So today we're going to be studying plants that never ever bloom. And in order to do this activity, you're going to need some sort of clay or Play-Doh. I picked Crayola Model Magic, but you could pick whatever. You could even make your own in your kitchen if you wanted to. A lid to some sort of jar to make it nice and round, and some specimens. Now, I've already gone and collected some, but we're going to go on a walk and collect others, so I have my clippers. So we're going to get started, and we'll learn all about plants that never ever bloom. So way back when we started our investigation on plants, we were talking about flowers, and we read a book by this very author called The Reason for a Flower. And if you can remember way back then, the reason for a flower is to make seeds. But some plants don't ever make seeds because they don't have flowers. And that's the reason for this book, Plants That Never Ever Bloom. And it's written by Ruth Heller. Oh, look, we have a little ant on our book. Excuse me. Thank you. And we'll get started. So these are plants, but they're different kind of plants. They don't make flowers or seeds. And here's one we probably all know, right? A mushroom. Plants that never, ever bloom. A mushroom doesn't ever bloom. It grows on trees and living things, or in the grass, in fairy rings. Some grow to be as tall as all of these you see. And some look rather strange to me. These glow at night. We don't know why. Mushrooms all are called fungi. Seaweed doesn't ever bloom. Some is green and often seen close to the shore. But there is more deeper down, where it is several shades of brown. And in the Pacific and Atlantic, seaweed grows to be gigantic. This mass has broken free and floats in the Sargasso Sea, where grumpy-looking fish reside, and other creatures like to hide. Deepest on the ocean bed is seaweed that is pink and red. Whichever color it may be, all seaweed is called algae. There goes that little ant again. Excuse me. Thank you. Lichen never ever blooms. It lives on logs and trees and rocks, and sometimes grows in little stalks. Lush moss that clings to trees, and liverworts like these that grow beside a stream are green, but not a flower can be seen. Ferns, from fiddleheads unfurl. Their cousins are the horsetails and this creeping evergreen, and not on any of these are flowers ever seen. 200 million years ago, ferns were rather small. Their cousins, on the other hand, grew very, very tall. So, right, ferns and evergreens, too, don't have flowers. None of these have flowers, and so they have no seeds. They have no seeds, as I have said. They grow from tiny spores instead. But here are some exceptions. There always are a few. Like all the rest, they never bloom, but from a seed they grew. This one is called a ginkgo, and another is a yew. And every plant that bears a cone is an exception too. In proper scientific terms, all of these are gymnosperms. So these are exceptions because inside here, even though they don't make a flower, they do make seeds. So they don't bloom, but they are seed makers. And that's the end. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a little hike around my little tiny cabin, and I'm going to show you a lot of the examples of plants that never bloom. I have some of these in my garden at home, but I figured, Todd and Spencer are out on a walk, so we will take a look around and see what we shall see. Okay, so you can see I do have like a mini garden. This is nothing like my garden at home. We sort of let nature take its course. Back here, I come sometimes and I pull out the weeds, but that's about it. So the first thing we spy is a fern. We'll take these back and we'll look at them up close. So we see a fern. Another plant that was mentioned in the book is something called moss. And I'm sure you guys have all seen moss. We have lots of moss. It's a plant that grows on rocks and on trees. And I'm not going to take a sample of, well, maybe I'll take a little sample of this moss for our activity today. But we've got a whole book just about moss, so I'm going to save most of it. Here's some fluffy moss. Another plant that never blooms is this thing called lichen. Lichen is sort of tricky. So I was reading about it, and apparently lichen is not a plant at all. It's actually two plants that live together and work together. I'll let Millie explain to you how that works. Here's some more lichen.
For many years, scientists thought of lichens as green plants because of their color and leafy-looking structure. However, once they were really able to observe them in a laboratory, they discovered this plant-like thing was actually 2 or even sometimes 3 organisms living and working as one. Lichen consists of an algae and a fungus, and sometimes a bacteria. The algae provides photosynthesis, making food for the lichen, and the fungus helps it reproduce through its spores. Alone, neither plant would survive, but by working together, lichen are very successful. Lichen can be found growing in almost all parts of the terrestrial world, from the ice-free polar areas to the tropics, tropical rainforests, and deserts. They can grow almost anywhere and on almost anything. Natural surfaces like rock, soil, wood, and bone, as well as man-made surfaces such as concrete, glass, metal, or canvas. You can find lichen pretty much anywhere you look.
So next to our house, we have this little grove of ferns. So I'm going to take a few samples. We have a couple kinds of ferns, but I'm going to take a few for our project, and then we'll get started on our science activity for the day. I didn't see any mushrooms. Oh, look at this. Here we have some mushrooms. I wasn't looking in the right place. Mushrooms like it where it's quite shady. So maybe I'll take one of these as well. And we'll take a look at it up close. We'll see what we can see. So I've gone around and taken a look just around my little yard here at the cabin, and I was able to find many examples of things that were in the book. I found some mushrooms that were growing. Well, I guess technically these are toadstools, right? So I found some toadstools. I found some lichen, which is that weird plant thing that Millie told us about. I found some moss, some pine cones, and also some ferns. And these are all plants that don't have flowers, and they don't bloom, and they don't make seeds. What they do is they make these little, you can sort of see it here, it's starting to come. On the back of ferns and on the underside of mushrooms, they make these little dusty things called spores. And then when the season is right, they release them into the environment, and that's how new plants, that's how these plants are born. You can see here the spores are starting to form. Down at the bottom, they haven't. So by the time this fern is ready to have its babies, the whole back will be covered with these little dusty circles. The same thing with this toadstool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to make little ornaments. I might turn them into magnets for my refrigerator up here, or I might put thread through them and, I don't know, hang them somewhere in the cabin. Now for this, I'm using Model Magic from Crayola, just because I didn't feel like coming up to the cabin and making my own Play-Doh. But you could make a salt and flour, salt, and water dough in your kitchen and do the same thing. I just, I figured I was on vacation. I wasn't gonna do that. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a little ball of your clay, and you can roll it and smush it. And now that I'm looking, this is rather a large container. I have my container lid to help it make a circle. If you're not fussy about it being a perfect circle, you can skip this step. So I'm going to sort of smush it to the sides of my circle. Push it to the edges. If you have a rolling pin from your Play-Doh kit, you could certainly smooth it out a little bit. So now I've got my perfect circle, and then I get to play. I get to figure out what kind of print I want to make. Now I might decide to mix and match, but I think to start I'm going to do them all individually. So this one's going to be a fern. I'm going to take my finger and push my fern into the modeling clay. And if I wanted to add more in the open spaces, I might. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do just one leaf over here. It looks like a smaller version of the parent, right? Each little blade, it looks like the whole version of the parent. And then when I'm ready, I pull it off, and I pull it off, and there's a very delicate imprint of the fern. And then when this dries, you take a marker and you color over the top, and the fern print peeks through. So maybe we'll do that. We'll go kayaking, and then maybe in the afternoon it will be dry enough to add my marker detail. So we'll make another fern over here. And so you can see it. It's probably hard to see on camera, but it's there. And then when this clay dries, we're gonna color it, and we'll see what happens. So then I'm gonna pop this piece out, and we'll do the whole thing again with a different specimen. Right, so there it is. If you want to make it into an ornament, you put a hole in it before it dries. I'm not sure what I'm going to use this one for, so I'm just going to put it to the side for now. Maybe we'll make one for our pine cone. Okay, so as you can see, we've gone ahead and we've done all of our prints. The fern came out really, really nicely. The pine cones were okay, but we'll have to see what it looks like when we color it up. You might not be able to see what it looks like, but you can definitely see where the parts of the cone were. We'll have to see what this one comes out like. The toadstool, in my opinion, did not really come out that great, but like I said, we'll have to wait and see till it dries and we color it up, and we'll have to wait and really see what kind of print we get. This part, I'm gonna leave them out in the sun, and maybe we'll be able to do that this afternoon. Okay, so our prints have been drying for a day or two, and I'm back at my house, which is a good thing because that's where I have my markers. So I'm just going to show you how to bring out the print after your clay has had time to dry. So you just take your marker and you go over it. And then if you use washable markers, there's an extra trick that you can do. I'll show you after. So you can kind of see the fern print. You don't have to color them in. You can certainly leave them white if you like. So there's the fern. And let's do the pine cone. And then the trick is to go in, see this one comes out real good. The trick is to go in with either a paintbrush dunked in water or even your finger dunked in water and sort of move the color around. So we're going to do that. So you see, I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to sort of spread. And because it's water-based, it's going to act like a watercolor paint. And then you can really see that fern print in there. So we'll do that one. If you're using a salt dough, you want to be careful not to make too much wetness, because then it will break down the clay. So you just want to go really quick. And then you'll see you've got your prints. So we've got our fern, and our pine cone. I'm going to try the toadstool, but I don't think this one's really going to work that much. There wasn't really much in the way of a print. But we'll try. Oh, some yellow. Not so much. I think this one I probably won't use, but I think what I'm going to do is put magnets on the back of these and put these on the refrigerator up at the cabin. Okay? We'll see you next.